go over here to Canaan. We're going to put Canaan right over there. On their way to Canaan, we're walking along. They stopped at a place called Haran. Now, I don't know about you. If here it is, you're walking along and you're headed to a new place and you're headed to a place you're going to live, and all of a sudden you come to the town of your son's name who passed away. Do you think that's going to jack you up? Let's say your son, somebody give me your son's name. Huh? Hayden. Let's say you're going from and you have to stop in Hayden. That's going to jack you up, isn't it? Because you're going to get out of that car and you're going to look around, and all you're going to think about is what happened. You're going to think about that relational wound. You're going to think about the loss is going to come back. And it doesn't matter how long it's been since your loss or since that tough moment, it is going to get easy for you to get stuck in Haran. Now, you know God said go over here to Canaan, and there are other things over here for you, but it's easy to get stuck in Haran. Because Haran is a painful place. But can I tell you something about pain? Are y'all ready for this? Y'all need to get this. Sometimes pain becomes familiar. And we find familiar sometimes to be easier than change. Sometimes pain becomes familiar and we get used to it. How many of you, just be honest and say, I know what you're talking about? How many of you know? Honestly, I know what you're talking about. Sometimes pain gets familiar. We get used to it. And it's easier to live in familiar than it is to change. Look at me, even when God told you to go somewhere else. Everybody got the illustration? All right, thanks, Sharon. And I can get high on that, so we'll put the cap on it. Lord. Why in the world anybody wants to sniff markers? I never know in my life. Good night. Whew. All right, here we go. Let me go ahead and break this down for you. Here we go. Relational wounds will keep you from your potential. Relational wounds will keep you from your potential. It's going to take you to a place where you get stuck. I'm going to give you an illustration. Most of you, if you've been to camp, you know my testimony. One of the things that happened in my testimony, I was 19 years old. I got my first church, drove 75 miles out here to my first church, 19. Walked in there. I was the music minister and the youth pastor. That seems to go together for some reason. I haven't figured it out. So, music minister, I'm leading the choir and all this kind of stuff. 19 years old, first week, fired up, excited. And then 3 weeks into it, the pastor calls me in his office and cusses me out. Now, I'm 19 years old. I think church is the best thing in the world. I think serving God, everything. And 3 weeks into it, I'm like going, what? Now, I'm not talking about the little words. I'm talking about the big words. Y'all know what I'm talking about? You're like, they're all big words. Don't be spiritual. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the big words that you're like, you don't say. And I'm like going, are you really saying this in the church? I need to lift my feet. Ow, it's going to get bad in here. And at that point, I was so shocked. I'm making a joke up now, but I was just devastated. So I went home and I called my parents, and this is just crazy and all this because stuff I didn't know. I was like, you know what? Pastor was having a bad day. Everybody's entitled one a year, amen? So everyone's having a bad day. Well, the next week, guess what? Could you see me in my office for a minute? I was like, no. Again. After the third time, I was like, I'm done with this. And let me tell you what I said. If this is God, I ain't interested. Because I was a confident 19-year-old. I knew what I was doing. I knew who I was. I knew what my relationship with the Lord is. But I want to tell you something. All of a sudden, the enemy jumped in my life and started saying, this is really what it is. This is why you're spending all this money to go to school for this. I'm like, no, I ain't. I'm done. So for a year and a half, I walked away. I walked away from the Lord. I walked away from things. I walked away from everything. And I tried to fill my life with everything in the world I could. I was a manager at Chili's. I was bartender. Did all the kinds of things to be busy. Do y'all know that when we're mad at God, we try to get ourselves extra busy? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Hey, you know, we're the ones who manage our schedule. Can I get a witness? Let's quit blaming God for being busy. Amen? And you say, God, would you please give me some more time? And he said, I've given you the ability to choose that, daughter. You know what I'm saying? I'm a son. I've given you the ability to choose that. So I chose. Until I had a friend who came and said, his name was Michael, and he said, Warren, I love you too much to let you stay the way you are. I hit him. He got back up and he says, I love you too much to let you stay the way you are. I fell to my knees and I repented, and I haven't turned back since. That is the Reader's Digest version of that. Okay? But I have to tell you what happens here. Relational wounds will keep you from your potential. I was still a church music major during all of that time. I was learning how to lead a choir and have a devotion with a choir and then serving alcohol at night. Hypocrite 101, got the plaque. You know what I'm saying? I've got the plaque. I was doing these things. I knew what I was doing, but I was living that life because I was so frustrated. But what had happened is deep inside my life, there was a relational wound. There was a very dark place that happened in my life. Let's fast forward. I'm at Willow Point Baptist Church. I'm a youth minister, and everything's going great. Have a great time. I'm also the worship associate. Obviously, those go together. And so, so I'm like doing, all this together and stuff. But then, Brother Sonny, here's what he says one day. Now I'm done with this. I have forgiven. I'm over it. I'm good with the Lord. And Brother Sunday comes up to me, and we have a great relationship. I hang out at his house. I was single. I was youth minister. Everything's good. He has not ever, I have no reason not to trust him, anything. And Brother Sunday says, Warren, could I see you in my office after church? I was like, no. Could we meet in the hall? You know what I'm saying? I'm like going, I want people around for this one, I'm about to get blasted. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, Brother Sonny, I'm like going, and I'm real confident. I don't know what's going on inside of me. And so I walked to his office. I'm just like thinking, I went straight to his office right after church, so maybe a lot of witnesses would be around. Seriously. So I'm standing outside his office. Now, he wants to socialize and be the pastor, and I stand there for 45 minutes, and then everybody's gone, and here I am. Brother Sonny walks in. I've been in his office 100 times. I've sat down in his office just talking to him about life. He knew my whole testimony. He knew all these details. He knew I had trust. He knew everything. And so he just goes, and he sits in his leather chair, and he crosses his leg after he takes off his coat and loosens up his tie, and he says, come on, Warren, sit down. And I'm standing. I am 23 years old right now, and I'm standing at the door of a man's office that I'm comfortable with and said, I can't come in there. He goes, what's wrong with you? We're always tall. What's wrong with you? And I'm telling you, I was frozen because there was a problem a long time ago about this situation that I thought that I dealt with, and here I was again. I was about to face the same thing. And I'll be honest with you, the conversation we had nothing to do with anything bad. His conversation to me that day was very encouraging. But I could not walk in his office that day. I was paralyzed. And I realized this. I cannot go forward in student ministry if I don't deal with this right now. And Brother Sonny, wise Brother Sonny, because he knew my testimony, and I had this scared, freaked out looking face, he got up out of his chair, and he walked into the hall, and I kind of just backed around, thinking I was about to get pinned. You know what I'm saying? And I just leaned up against the wall, and he leaned up against the wall just like this. And we had our meeting in the hall. And he said, Warren, we got to do something about this. And over the next week, we spent a lot of time together talking this through. And then he said, Warren, I want you to take a couple of days, and I want you to drive all the way down there. And I want you to see if you can find that pastor. Drove down there. I knocked on the door of Brother Buddy. Opened the door. He started.